My name is Richard Monroe. I'm 68 years old, and I live in San Diego, California. 3 days ago, my own children dumped me in a nursing home like I was yesterday's trash, but what they didn't know was that I'd been expecting it. Before we go any further, do me a favor, hit that like button if you're over 60 and still sharp as a tack. Subscribe if you believe family should mean something, and drop your city and age in the comments. Let's see who's watching. I spent 30 years as a corporate finance consultant, built portfolios, managed risk, advised CEOs on decisions worth millions. My mind's as clear now as it was at 40, maybe clearer. You learn to read people in my line of work. You learn when someone's lying, when they're desperate, when they're playing you. So when my son Brian pulled up to Sunset Meadows Assisted Living that Tuesday morning, I knew exactly what was happening. The building squatted off a service road near the 805. Stucco painted that hopeful peach color that's supposed to feel warm. It didn't. The sign out front had 2 burnt-out bulbs. Brian parked his Audi in the visitor section, left it running while my daughter Jennifer climbed out of the passenger seat. "Dad, we're here," she said, opening my door like I couldn't manage it myself. I'm 68. I golf twice a week. I do the Sunday crossword in pen. Inside, the lobby smelled like cafeteria green beans and carpet cleaner failing to cover something worse. The furniture was vinyl, the kind that sticks to your legs in summer. A television mounted in the corner played The Price is Right with no sound. 3 residents sat along the far wall, staring at nothing in particular. Jennifer signed us in at the front desk, while Brian stood by the door, checking his phone. A woman in purple scrubs, name tag said Deb, came around with a clipboard and a tired smile. "Mr. Monroe, we're so glad to have you. Your children have told us all about your situation." My situation? That's what we were calling it. "Dad's been getting forgetful," Jennifer said, using that voice people use when they're performing. "He left the stove on twice last month. We just want him somewhere safe." I hadn't left the stove on. Well, once. On purpose. "Can't manage the house alone anymore," Brian added, still not looking at me. "It's for the best, Dad. You'll see." I didn't argue. I sat down in one of those vinyl chairs and folded my hands. Jennifer crouched beside me, squeezed my shoulder. "We'll visit soon, okay? This is what's best." Brian shook my hand. Actually shook it, like we'd just closed a real estate deal. They walked out together, relief washing over them the moment they thought I couldn't see. Through the window, I watched them reach the parking lot. Jennifer laughed at something on her phone. Brian loosened his tie, stretched his neck like he'd just finished a long shift. I sat there in that lobby, smelling institutional lunch and floor wax, feeling that old familiar sting, the one that comes when someone you love decides you're disposable. But underneath the sting was something else, clarity, because I'd been expecting this, and I'd been preparing. I thought I was being a good father. Turns out, I was just being an ATM with a heartbeat. Let me back up 2.5 years. My wife Margaret died on a Thursday in March. Aneurysm. Sudden. No warning. One moment she's planting tomatoes in the backyard. The next, she's gone. 43 years together. Ended between breakfast and lunch. I did what a lot of men do. I threw myself into staying useful. I had the house paid off. A solid retirement portfolio. No debt. The kids were adults, sure, but they had struggles. I wanted to help. Brian's restaurant equipment business hit a rough patch. Inventory issues, cash flow problems, vendors threatening to pull contracts. He called me on a Sunday, voice tight. "Dad, I hate asking, but I'm 80 grand in the hole. If I don't cover payroll, I lose everything." I wired the money Monday morning. Didn't ask for a contract. Didn't ask for repayment terms. He's my son. That kept his lights on for 6 months. Then came smaller requests. A few thousand here, another 5 there. I kept helping because that's what fathers do. Jennifer's wellness retreat startup needed capital. $50,000 to secure a lease in Encinitas, build out yoga studios, hire instructors. "Dad, this is my dream. I just need a little help getting started." I wrote the check, told her I believed in her. There were other things, smaller, constant. Car repairs, mortgage help, medical bills. Vacations they couldn't quite afford. I covered dinners every time we met, sent money for the grandkids' birthdays, bailed them out when credit cards got tight. I never asked for payback. I'm not that kind of father. I just wanted respect. Maybe a phone call that wasn't about money. But the calls changed. Dad, can you Venmo me? Dad, we're short this month. They'd show up when they needed something. Stay an hour. Leave. Brian talked about his business. Jennifer talked about her classes. Nobody asked how I was doing. Nobody asked if I was lonely in that big house with Margaret's garden going to weeds. When I slipped on the back step last October, just a stumble, bruised my hip, I thought maybe it was time to bring up living arrangements. Maybe move in with one of them, help with grandkids, stay part of the family. I mentioned it to Brian over coffee. Dad, we don't really have the space. And Lisa's got her routine, you know. It would be complicated. I tried Jennifer 2 weeks later. I'd love to, Dad, but with the studio and the kids' schedules, I just don't think it would work. You understand, right? I understood. That's when I started paying attention, really paying attention, to the questions they asked, to the way Jennifer's eyes lingered on the house when she visited, calculating square footage, to the way Brian asked about my investment accounts, my estate planning, whether I'd updated my will recently. They weren't checking on their father. They were checking on their inheritance. So 6 months ago, I made a decision. I hired a private investigator, clean, professional, former LAPD. I wanted to know exactly how my kids were living, what they were spending, what they were planning. Turns out knowledge is expensive, but ignorance costs more. I gave them one last chance to prove they cared about me, not my money. They failed before we even reached the parking lot. The investigator's name was Marcus Webb, former financial crimes detective, now private. I met him at a coffee shop in La Jolla, showed him the bank statements, the pattern of withdrawals, the requests that never stopped. I need to know how they're spending it, I said, and what they're saying when I'm not around. 3 weeks later, Marcus handed me a folder. Brian and Jennifer were both underwater. Credit cards maxed, mortgages refinanced twice, car payments late. They were living like they had money. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, private schools for the grandkids, all on borrowed time. Brian's business was failing, had been for a year. My $80,000 kept the lights on for 6 months, then vanished into the same hole along with every payment after. Jennifer's wellness studio never opened. The $50,000 went to personal debts, a kitchen remodel, a trip to Maui. But the worst part was the recording. Marcus had caught Jennifer on the phone with Brian. Parking lot conversation, speakers on, windows down. February, outside a Whole Foods. Mom's money kept them comfortable for 40 years. Now it's Dad's turn to take care of us. Brian's voice, crackling through the speaker. How long do you think we have to wait? He's 68. Could be another 15, 20 years. But if he goes into care, we can get power of attorney, start liquidating assets. The house alone is worth $1.2 million. What if he says no? Then we make the case that he can't take care of himself. Find a doctor who'll sign off. It's not that hard. I listened to that recording 4 times, each time hoping I'd misunderstood. I hadn't. That's when I designed the test. I started small, missed a dentist appointment, called Jennifer confused about the date, left the stove burner on one morning, unlit, no danger, then mentioned it casually to Brian. Getting forgetful, I guess. I repeated myself in conversations, asked questions I'd already asked, moved things around the house, then acted puzzled when I couldn't find them. It was a theater, controlled, intentional. I wanted to see how they'd react, but I kept my planning separate. I used a phone they didn't know about, a prepaid burner I paid cash for. I opened a new bank account at a different institution for flight bookings and PI fees. I worked with my lawyer through his private email, not the office line. Every step was invisible to them. Within 2 weeks of my confused act, Jennifer was researching memory care facilities. I found the browser history on her laptop when she left it open during a visit. Sunset Meadows was bookmarked. Budget tier, bare bones, the kind of place you put someone when you want them out of sight. Brian started talking about options, about how I'd be safer with professional care, how they just wanted what was best for me. They never once asked if I wanted help at home, never suggested hiring a caregiver or visiting more often or including me in their lives. They wanted me gone, so I let them think they were winning. I played confused, a little scared, a little helpless. I let them schedule the tour at Sunset Meadows, let them pack my suitcase, let them drive me down the 805 on that Tuesday morning. And the whole time, I was watching, testing, gathering evidence. Because if they were going to treat me like a problem to solve, I was going to solve them right back. They couldn't even wait an hour before spending my money. Jennifer hugged me in that lobby like she was hugging a stranger. Stiff, performative, the kind of embrace you give someone at a funeral when you're supposed to care but don't. Her perfume was expensive, something French, something I probably paid for. "We'll visit soon, Dad. This is what's best." Brian shook my hand. I actually shook it. Firm grip, professional, the way you close a business deal. No eye contact. "You're going to be fine here, Dad. They'll take good care of you." Deb, the woman in purple scrubs, stood beside me with her clipboard. "We'll get you settled, Mr. Monroe. Would you like to see your room?" I nodded, took the clipboard, signed the visitor log at the bottom. Richard Monroe, one letter off, visitor, not resident. Close enough to pass a glance if anyone checked. Different enough that I was never actually admitted. Through the window, I watched my children walk to the parking lot. The relief on their faces was immediate, visible even from 30 yards away. Jennifer pulled out her phone, scrolled, smiled. Brian stretched his shoulders, cracked his neck like he'd just finished manual labor. They climbed into the Audi. Brian checked his mirrors, adjusted his sunglasses. Jennifer laughed at something on her screen. They pulled out of the lot at 3:41 p.m. I thanked Deb, told her I needed a moment to collect myself in the lobby before seeing the room. She squeezed my arm, said she understood, and walked back to the front desk. I waited exactly 4 minutes, then walked through the activities room to the back service exit where deliveries came in. An Uber was waiting in the alley, prearranged, paid cash through the burner phone 3 days earlier. The driver took me straight to Lindbergh Field. At 3:52 p.m., my phone buzzed while I was going through the TSA. A transaction alert. Brian's black card, the one I'd co-signed 2 years ago, the one linked to my master checking account, had just been swiped at a coffee shop downtown. $47. Just coffee and pastries. An appetizer to the celebration. I stared at that notification for a long moment. Then I smiled, because the test results were in. Confirmed, documented, undeniable. My children had driven me to a nursing home, dumped me like medical waste, and immediately started spending the money they thought they were about to inherit. They'd failed every measure of decency, loyalty, love, but they'd passed one test. They'd shown me exactly who they were, and now it was my turn. By the time they sat down for their real celebration dinner, I'd be 30,000 feet over the Pacific. Time to make some calls. They were spending my money before I'd even left San Diego, except I'd already cut the cord. Marcello's sits on Fifth Avenue in the Gaslamp Quarter. White tablecloths, Italian marble bar, wine list thick as a phone book. The kind of place you take clients when you're trying to impress them, or celebrate when you think you've won something big. Brian and Jennifer walked in at 4:15 p.m., barely 90 minutes after dropping me off. The hostess seated them by the window, leather booth, and the view of the street. They ordered a bottle of Barolo first thing, $240, if memory serves. I'd taken clients there enough times to know the menu. Jennifer raised her glass. To Dad's new chapter, and ours. They clinked crystal, sipped, and smiled like lottery winners. I wasn't there, of course, but Marcus Webb was, sitting 3 tables over with a newspaper and a very good telephoto lens. He'd been tailing them since morning, documenting everything. Later, he'd send me photos, audio clips, and the whole story. Brian studied the menu like a man who didn't need to check prices. The dry-aged ribeye, 45 days, and start me with the lobster ravioli. Jennifer ordered the osso buco, and laughed when the waiter suggested pairing it with a northern Italian white. Bring us both. Let's celebrate properly. Between courses, they talked, planned, dreamed out loud about my assets like I was already dead. The house needs work, Jennifer said, twirling pasta. New kitchen, definitely. Maybe open up the back wall, add a deck. Could increase value by $200,000-300,000. Brian nodded, cutting into steak that cost more than most people's weekly groceries. I'm selling the Buick immediately. Dad's been driving that thing for 12 years. We can get 15, maybe 20 grand. What about the investment accounts? I talked to a guy. We can liquidate the mutual funds, move everything into something more aggressive. Tech stocks, crypto maybe. Dad's portfolio is too conservative. We could double it in 2 years. They weren't even subtle, weren't even pretending to feel guilty. The waiter brought dessert menus. Brian waved him off, ordered tiramisu for the table and sambuca. Then he flagged down the couple sitting next to them. Tourists, looked like, cameras around their necks. Excuse me, folks. My sister and I just had some very good news. Can we buy you an appetizer? Celebrate with us? The tourists looked confused but pleased. Brian ordered calamari and bruschetta for their table, added another bottle of wine to his own tab, showing off, playing the big man with money he didn't earn. The bill came on a leather portfolio, $847.63. Brian pulled out the black card, the one he'd convinced me to co-sign 2 years ago when his business hit rough water, the one connected directly to my master checking account with a credit line I'd personally guaranteed. He handed it over with a smirk. Didn't even glance at the total. The waiter walked away, came back 2 minutes later, uncomfortable. Sir, I'm sorry. This card was declined. Brian's smile froze. That's impossible. Run it again. The waiter nodded, disappeared, returned with the same answer. Sir, it's being declined. Do you have another form of payment? Jennifer's face went pale, and somewhere in the back of my mind, 1,500 miles south, I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Satisfaction. Watching entitled people realize they're broke is poetry in real time. Brian insisted it was a bank error. Corporate cards glitch sometimes. Systems go down, and happens all the time. He tried the card again, slower, like the speed of the swipe mattered. Declined. Jennifer dug through her purse, pulled out her own Visa, also linked to my accounts, also co-signed when she needed help with her business loan. She handed it to the waiter with shaking hands. Declined. They sat there in that booth, expensive wine going warm in their glasses, watching the waiter watch them. Other diners were starting to notice. The couple they'd bought appetizers for looked away, embarrassed. We need to step outside, Brian said, standing too quickly. Make some calls. We'll be right back. The restaurant manager appeared before they reached the door. Mid-50s, Italian accent, arms crossed over a pressed white shirt. Is there a problem with the bill? Brian put on his consultant voice, the one he uses when he's trying to sound competent. Just a banking issue. I'll have it sorted in 5 minutes. They pushed out onto Fifth Avenue, heat radiating off the sidewalk. Jennifer was already dialing her bank. Brian called him. Both got the same automated system. Press 1 for balance, press 2 for recent transactions, press 3 to speak with a representative. Brian pressed 3, waited, got a recording. Due to account restrictions placed by the primary account holder, all cards linked to this account have been temporarily suspended pending authorization. Please contact the account holder directly. He pulled the phone from his ear, stared at it. Jennifer tried her bank next, navigating the same menus. Got the same message. Different voice, same words. Pending account holder authorization. Call Dad, Jennifer said. Brian dialed. It rang once, twice, then clicked to voicemail. My voice recorded 6 months ago, calm and professional. You've reached Richard Monroe. Leave a message. He tried again. Voicemail. Jennifer grabbed his phone, tried from her number. Same result. He froze everything. Brian said quietly, How? He's in a nursing home. He can't even remember what day it is. He remembered enough to lock us out. They stood there on the sidewalk, tourists streaming past, the evening heat pressing down. I imagined their minds were racing, calculating bills, mortgage payments, car notes, credit card minimums, Everything they owed, everything they'd been planning to cover with my money. Brian checked his wallet. 3 20s, a 10, scattered ones, maybe $80. Jennifer had 60 in cash. She counted it twice, like the number might change. $140 between them. That's what they had without me. The manager stepped outside, hands in his pockets. Professional, but firm. Folks, I need some kind of resolution. Brian stammered something about coming back tomorrow. First thing, bringing cash. The manager shook his head. I'm going to need to hold some collateral. Driver's licenses. Jennifer started to argue. Brian put a hand on her arm, stopped her. They handed over their IDs, promised to return by noon the next day. The walk back to the Audi was silent. Brian's face had gone from pale to red, from shock to anger. Jennifer kept checking her phone, hoping I'd call back. I didn't. They climbed into the car, shut the doors, and sat there in the parking garage for 10 minutes before Brian finally started the engine. They had no idea where I was, but they were starting to understand what they'd lost. They thought I was rotting in a nursing home. I was sipping margaritas on a beach 1,500 miles away. Cabo San Lucas at sunset is something you don't forget. The sky goes orange, then pink, then deep purple. The Sea of Cortez stretches out like hammered silver. I sat at a beachfront table at Sunset de Mona Lisa, feet in the sand, watching pelicans dive for fish. I never checked into Sunset Meadows. Not really. After Brian and Jennifer left that lobby, I waited exactly 4 minutes, signed the visitor log, Richard Monroe, close enough, thanked Deb at the front desk, and walked through the activities room to the back service exit. An Uber was waiting in the alley, prearranged, paid in cash. The driver took me to Lindbergh Field. I had a first-class ticket to Cabo, booked 3 weeks earlier on my separate account, one-way, open return. By the time my kids were toasting at Marcello's, I was 30,000 feet over the Pacific. My phone buzzed at 6:17 p.m. Brian's name on the screen. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, took a sip of my margarita, real lime, good tequila, salt on the rim. Then I answered, "Hello? Dad." Brian's voice was tight, panicked. "Where are you? The cards aren't working. Both of them. We tried calling the bank and they said," "I know, son. I froze the accounts this morning." Silence. Not the thoughtful kind, the stunned kind. "You, what?" "I froze them. All of them. Before you even picked me up." More silence. I could hear Jennifer in the background, asking what I'd said. Brian put me on speaker. "Dad, this isn't funny." Jennifer's voice, shaking. "We need access. We have bills, obligations. You needed a nursing home for me," I said evenly. "Figure it out." "Dad, we can explain." "You left me in a facility that smells like disinfectant and defeat, then went straight to an $800 dinner on my credit card. What's left to explain?" Brian tried to recover. "We were upset. We needed to decompress. It was emotional, putting you somewhere safe." "I'm not in Sunset Meadows, Brian." Another silence, longer this time. "What?" "I walked out the back door 20 minutes after you left. I'm in Mexico, drinking something with an umbrella in it, watching the sun set over the Pacific." I could hear Jennifer breathing hard, close to the phone. "Dad, please, we made a mistake. We can fix this." I watched a wave roll in, foam white against the sand. "This wasn't a mistake," I said. "It was a choice." Then I let the silence stretch, because some things don't need more words. I didn't raise them to be vultures, so I stopped feeding them. Brian's voice cracked. "Dad, come on. We can fix this. We'll bring you home. You chose my money over my dignity," I said, cutting him off. "You heard me say I was scared of being alone, and you found the cheapest warehouse to store me in. We thought you needed help. I needed my children. You gave me abandonment." Jennifer was crying now. Real tears, maybe. Or performance. Hard to tell anymore. "Please, Dad, we didn't understand. We'll do better." I closed my eyes, felt the ocean breeze. "The accounts are restructured. Permanently. You have no access. The house is in an irrevocable trust you can't touch. The investment portfolio's been moved to institutions that don't recognize your names. Dad, my will has been rewritten. The lawyer filed it this morning. You're not in it." Silence. "The nursing home was a test," I said quietly. I gave you every chance to choose me over money. You failed in the parking lot. We can change, Brian said. We can prove. You already proved everything I needed to know. At Marcello's, with your toasts and your plans and your lobster. You thought I'd never find out. I opened my eyes. The sun was half gone now, melting into the horizon. Don't call me again. Dad, please. I hung up, turned off the phone, set it on the table next to my drink. The waiter came by, asked if I wanted another round. I nodded. He brought a fresh margarita, extra salt, a smile that didn't need a tip to be genuine. I sat there as the sky went dark, as the lights came on along the beach, as the sound of distant music drifted over the sand. For the first time in 2 years, maybe longer, I felt light, not happy exactly, not yet, but free. Free from obligation to people who saw me as an expense line. Free from pretending their love wasn't transactional. Just free. And that was enough. I didn't lose my children that day. I lost them years ago. I just finally admitted it. The first morning in Cabo, I woke up at 6:30 without an alarm. Sunlight streamed through white linen curtains, warm and clean. I lay there for a moment, listening to waves crash against the rocks below, and realized something strange. I'd slept through the night, 8 hours, uninterrupted, first time in 2 years. I made coffee in the little kitchen of my rental. Nothing fancy, just a French press and local beans from the Mercado. Stood on the balcony watching the sky turn from pink to blue, pelicans gliding low over the water. Down on the beach, fishermen were already working, casting nets, hauling in the morning catch, moving with the rhythm of men who've done this their whole lives. I finished my coffee and walked down to join them. Not to fish, just to watch, be near people whose relationships were simple, transactional in the honest way. You catch fish, you sell fish, you feed your family, no hidden motives. I thought about Margaret. She would have been heartbroken by what Brian and Jennifer became. She gave them everything, time, attention, unconditional love, sacrificed her career to raise them right. She would have cried for days if she'd heard that phone call, the one where Jennifer talked about liquidating assets. But she also would have understood what I did. Margaret didn't tolerate disrespect from anyone. When Brian was 16, he stole $40 from her purse for concert tickets. She found out, made him return the tickets, work off the debt doing yard work for neighbors. Didn't speak to him for 3 days until he apologized. Not because of the money, because of the betrayal of trust. She taught them that actions have consequences. I wish she'd lived long enough to see if the lesson stuck. I walked for an hour, feet in the surf, thinking about who they used to be. Brian at 7, learning to ride a bike in the driveway. Me running behind him holding the seat until he found his balance. Jennifer's high school graduation. How she hugged me after getting her diploma. Whispered, "Thank you for believing in me." Where does it go wrong? When does love curdle into entitlement? I don't know. Maybe it's gradual, so slow you don't see it happening. Maybe it's sudden, one bad choice that becomes a pattern. Maybe I gave too much, or not enough, or the wrong things at the wrong times. Maybe it doesn't matter. Back at the villa, I checked my phone. 14 missed calls, 29 text messages, all from Brian and Jennifer. I scrolled through without reading, saw the desperation in the frequency, the timestamps, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. They weren't sleeping either, but their insomnia wasn't my problem anymore. I blocked both numbers, sat there for a moment with my thumb hovering over the confirm button, thinking about what it meant. Then I pressed it. The phone felt lighter after that. I made lunch, fresh mango, grilled fish from the market, rice with lime, ate on the balcony, read a thriller I'd been meaning to get to for 6 months. Around 3 p.m., a sense of peace settled over me. Not happiness, not yet, but something close, something that felt like the beginning of it. I didn't regret cutting them off. I grieved the children they used to be, but I didn't regret protecting myself from the adults they'd become. They thought they were inheriting a fortune. They inherited a lesson instead. Back in San Diego, Brian's business checking account had $1,200, enough to cover payroll for 2 weeks if nobody took vacation and he didn't pay himself. His personal account was worse. Overdraft protection, keeping it technically positive. Jennifer had $30,000 in debt spread across 4 credit cards, a studio lease she couldn't break, and equipment she'd bought on financing that she couldn't sell for half what she owed. They met at a Starbucks in Mission Valley on Wednesday morning. Both looked like they hadn't slept. Jennifer's eyes were red. Brian kept checking his phone like the numbers in his bank app might change if he refreshed enough times. "How bad?" Jennifer asked. "Bad. You?" "Worse." They sat there with their lattes going cold, doing math on napkins. Mortgage payments, car notes, insurance, utilities, groceries. Without Richard's money flowing in, they had maybe 6 weeks before things started falling apart. Brian leaned back, rubbed his face. "I was going to list the house in October." Jennifer looked up. "What?" "Dad's house. I'd already talked to a realtor. Got a valuation. $1.2 million. Probably sell for 1.3 in this market. Split it, clear our debts, invest the rest." Jennifer's jaw tightened. "I called a realtor too. 3 weeks ago." They stared at each other. "Jesus," Brian said. "Yeah." They tried calling Richard's lawyer first. Sherman and Associates, downtown office, the firm Richard had used for 30 years. The receptionist was polite, but firm. "Mr. Sherman can't discuss Mr. Monroe's affairs without his authorization." Brian explained he was Richard's son, that there'd been a misunderstanding, that they just needed to straighten things out. "I understand, sir, but without Mr. Monroe's consent, I can't help you." Richard's financial advisor at Merrill Lynch gave them the same answer. So did his accountant. So did his estate planner. Every door locked. Every avenue was closed. "We need to go there," Jennifer said finally. "To the nursing home. Explain face to face. He'll listen if we're in the room." Brian nodded, grabbed his keys. They drove to Sunset Meadows in silence, parked in the same visitor spot Brian had used the day before, walked into that same lobby with the vinyl chairs and The Price is Right playing soundlessly on the wall. Jennifer approached the front desk. Different woman today, younger. Name tag said, Ashley. "Hi, we're here to see Richard Monroe. He was brought in on Tuesday." Ashley typed on her computer, frowned, typed more. "I'm sorry, I don't have anyone by that name." "Try Richard Monroe," Brian said. "Might be spelled different." More typing, more frowning. "No, sorry. No Monroe, no Monroe. Are you sure he's a resident here?" Jennifer's voice went tight. "We dropped him off ourselves, Tuesday afternoon, around 3. Ashley pulled up the intake log, scrolled back. "I have 3 admissions on Tuesday. None of them named Monroe or Munro. But I do see a Richard Monroe signed the visitor log around 3:45. But he wasn't admitted as a resident." They stood there, understanding dawning slowly. "He never checked in," Jennifer said quietly. "No, he played us." Brian started to speak, stopped. They walked back to the car without another word. They'd been outplayed by a man they'd underestimated, and they had no idea what to do next. "I thought retirement meant slowing down. It turned out it meant finally speeding up in the direction I wanted. The villa I rented was small, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a balcony overlooking the water. $1,800 a month, utilities included. The landlord was a woman named Rosa, who spoke careful English and brought me fresh tortillas every Sunday. I joined the local expat community without meaning to. Just showed up at a Tuesday coffee meetup someone mentioned at the market. 15 people, mostly American and Canadian, aged 60 to 80. Teachers, engineers, a former nurse, a guy who'd run a construction company in Denver for 40 years. We met at the same cafe every week, talked about books, politics, where to find good produce, how to navigate Mexican healthcare. Nobody asked probing questions. Nobody needed your life story. You could just be. I started Spanish lessons on Thursday mornings. My tutor was a college student named Miguel, who was patient with my terrible pronunciation and made me practice ordering food at restaurants. By week 3, I could handle basic conversations. By week 6, I was reading street signs without translating in my head first. Wednesday afternoons, I volunteered at a community center in the Colonias, the working neighborhoods inland. They ran a literacy program for kids whose parents worked long hours. I taught basic English, colors, numbers, animals, simple phrases. The kids called me Senor Ricardo and didn't care about my bank account or my will. One boy, maybe 9 years old, told me he wanted to be an engineer, build bridges. I helped him with homework, brought him practice books from the bookstore in town. I watched his confidence grow week by week. It reminded me why I'd gone into finance in the first place, not for the money, but because I was good with numbers and I wanted to help people build something stable. I reconnected with people I'd lost touch with. My college roommate, Paul, who'd retired to Scottsdale. We video called every Sunday, talked about golf and grandkids and the Padres' chances this season. He never asked why I'd moved to Mexico, just said it sounded like a good move. I called my old mentor from the consulting firm, a man named Howard who was 83 and still sharp. He'd always told me that the second half of your life should be about subtraction, not addition. Cut out what doesn't serve you. Keep what matters. I finally understood what he meant. My health improved. Blood pressure dropped from 145/90 to 125/75. The chronic back pain I'd lived with for a decade, sitting at desks, stress, tension, started fading. I swam every morning, walked every evening, slept like I was 25. I made friends, real ones. Carlos, a retired civil engineer from Guadalajara, who'd moved to Cabo after his wife passed. We played chess on Sunday afternoons, drank beer, complained about politicians in 2 languages. Susan, a widow from Colorado who taught yoga and made the best chile rellenos I'd ever tasted. She invited me to dinners with her friend group, other expats, local artists, a marine biologist who studied whale migration. We shared meals, told stories, laughed until our sides hurt. I realized, sometime in the 3rd week, that I was happier than I'd been since Margaret died, maybe happier than I'd been in years before. That I wasn't running from my children. I was running toward myself, and for the first time in a long time, I liked where I was headed. The hardest letters to answer are the ones that don't ask for anything. 3 weeks into my new life, a manila envelope arrived at my lawyer's office in San Diego. Sherman forwarded it to my Cabo address with a note. Thought you'd want to see this. J.S. The return address was local, San Diego. Jennifer's handwriting on the front. I held the envelope in my hands for 10 minutes before opening it. Inside was a single piece of stationery, white, unlined. Her handwriting filled both sides, neat, careful, the same script she'd learned in Catholic school. Dad, I don't expect forgiveness. You were right, we failed you. Not just the nursing home, everything before it. The calls that were only about money, the plans we made behind your back, the way we treated you like an obligation instead of a father. I've started therapy, twice a week. I'm trying to understand how I became someone you had to escape, how I became someone who could hear my own father say he was scared and lonely, and saw it as an opportunity instead of a cry for help. I sold my business assets, paid down what I could. I'm working as a bookkeeper now for a property management company. It's honest work. I'm learning to live within my means. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to become someone who would deserve a second chance, even if I never get one. I love you. I'm sorry. Jenny. I read it twice, set it on the table next to my coffee, stared at the horizon where the water met the sky. Jenny. She hadn't signed a letter Jenny since high school. It was always Jennifer. Professional, distant, the name she used when she wanted to be taken seriously. I wasn't sure what to feel. Anger? I'd already spent that. Grief? Still there, but quieter now. Hope? Maybe. Or maybe just exhaustion. The phone stayed silent. I didn't call. Not yet. Forgiveness isn't about them deserving it. It's about you deciding what you can live with. Jennifer's letter sat on my kitchen table for 3 days. I'd read it in the morning with coffee, again at lunch, once more before bed, looking for manipulation, for hidden asks, for the angle. I couldn't find one. That bothered me more than if she'd asked for money. I talked to Susan about it over dinner at her place. She'd made enchiladas, and we sat on her terrace, watching the sunset turn the sky purple. What do you think I should do? She refilled my wine glass, considered. What do you want to do? I don't know. That's the problem. Susan had divorced her husband at 60 after catching him with his secretary, walked away from 30 years of marriage, rebuilt her entire life. She understood the cost of boundaries. Forgiveness isn't weakness, she said carefully, but it's not required either. You don't owe anyone access to you, Richard, not even your children. She's trying, though. The letter feels different. Maybe. Or maybe she's just better at performing change than her brother. Susan paused. Time tells the truth. That's all you need to know. I talked to Carlos the next day over chess. He moved his bishop, trapped my knight, and said, "What's bothering you?" I told him about Jennifer's letter. He nodded slowly. My son stole from me 15 years ago. Took $40,000 from a joint account we had for emergencies. Spent it on a car, a trip to Vegas, God knows what else. Did he apologize? Never. Still hasn't. Acts like I'm the unreasonable one for cutting him off. Carlos captured my knight. Blood doesn't excuse betrayal, Ricardo. You remember that. I spent 2 days journaling, something Margaret had gotten me into years ago during a stressful quarter at work, writing things out, seeing them on paper instead of circling in my head. The questions kept coming back to the same place. Can people really change? I thought about Margaret. She believed in second chances. When Brian got suspended in 10th grade for cheating, she grounded him, made him retake the class in summer school, but she didn't stop believing in him. When Jennifer wrecked the car at 17, Margaret made her work to pay the insurance deductible, but she didn't stop trusting her. But Margaret also had limits. When Brian stole that $40 from her purse, she'd said something I'd forgotten until now. You get one chance to fix a betrayal. If you do it again, you've told me who you are. Second chances, but not third. Jennifer's letter wasn't asking for access. It was taking accountability. That was different from Brian's silence, his blame shifting, his angry texts before I'd blocked him. She wasn't demanding I come back. She was telling me she was trying to become someone worth coming back to. That distinction mattered. I decided on the 4th day. Early morning, the beach still empty, coffee going cold on the table. I pulled out a piece of paper, actual stationery, not email, and wrote. 1 page. Honest, firm, measured. Not forgiveness, not yet, but not permanent exile either. Margaret would have called it fair. She would have said I was protecting myself without closing the door completely. I sealed the envelope, walked it to the post office, and mailed it before I could second-guess myself. Whatever happened next was up to Jennifer. I'd done my part. I gave her the truth, not the comfort. That's the kindest thing a father can do. The letter I sent was shorter than hers. 1 page, maybe 200 words. Jenny, I appreciate your honesty. Not many people can look at themselves clearly enough to take accountability. That takes courage. I'm not ready to resume a relationship. I need you to understand that. What happened wasn't just about the nursing home. It was about years of being treated like a resource instead of a father. That doesn't heal quickly, but I acknowledge you're trying. Keep working on yourself, for you, not for me. If you're genuine, time will show it. If you're not, that'll show up too. I'm not coming back to San Diego anytime soon. I need this distance. I'm building something here that's mine, that isn't weighed down by obligation or disappointment. Take care of yourself. Dad, I mailed it on Tuesday. Didn't expect a response, honestly. Figured she'd either get angry at the boundaries or drift away when she realized I wasn't softening. 2 weeks later, another envelope arrived. Same handwriting, same careful script. Dad, thank you for responding. I wasn't sure you would. I understand you're not ready. I understand it might take years, or might never happen. I'm not pushing. I just wanted you to know I heard you. I'm seeing a therapist every week now. We're working through a lot, not just what happened with you, but patterns I've carried my whole adult life. Entitlement, avoidance, treating people like they exist to solve my problems. I got a full-time bookkeeping position. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work, and it pays my bills. I'm learning to live within my means, actually within them, not just pretending while counting on bailouts. I hope you're happy in Mexico. I hope you're finding peace. I won't write again unless you want me to. Love, Jenny. I read it twice. I folded it carefully, put put it in the drawer with her first letter. I didn't reply, not because I was punishing her, but because she'd said everything that needed saying. Another letter from me would just be words. What mattered now was time, months, maybe years of her doing what she said she was doing. Talk is cheap. I'd learned that the hard way. But I didn't block her email, didn't return her letters unopened, didn't slam the door completely shut. The boundary was clear. I wasn't available for a relationship, but I was available for the truth. If she wanted to keep me updated on her progress, fine. If she stayed consistent, therapy, honest work, no requests, then maybe somewhere down the line, we could have a conversation about rebuilding. But that was future talk, hypothetical. For now, the door wasn't open, but it wasn't welded shut either. Susan asked me a week later how I felt about the exchange. Sad, I said, but not regretful. That's the difference between consequences and cruelty, she said. You're not punishing her. You're protecting yourself. She could still be performing. She could, but if she is, she's putting in a lot of effort for no immediate payoff. That's a long con. People have run longer ones. True, but Ricardo, at some point, you have to decide whether you're going to live in fear of being fooled again or live in the present with clear boundaries. You've set yours. Now you just maintain them. She was right. I'd done what I could do. The rest was up to Jennifer. Some people learn from consequences. Others just get louder, blaming everyone else. Brian didn't write letters. I heard about him through my lawyer, who heard through mutual acquaintances in San Diego. The business folded in 8 weeks. Couldn't make payroll. Couldn't cover rent. Vendors stopped delivering. He closed the doors on a Tuesday. Fired his 3 employees by text message. His wife, Lisa, filed for divorce 2 months later. I'd always liked Lisa. Practical woman, worked as a dental hygienist, kept their household running while Brian chased deals. Apparently, she'd had enough of his financial recklessness, his blaming everyone else, his refusal to take accountability for anything. She got the house in the settlement. Brian moved into a studio apartment in Claremont, 1,200 square feet down to 400. He got a job at a phone store in a strip mall, part-time, commission-based, selling plans to people who didn't want them. The kind of work that's honest if you approach it with humility, humiliating if you approach it with entitlement. Brian approached it with entitlement. My lawyer told me he'd tried calling from different numbers, burner phones, friends' phones, the store's landline. I never answered. Sherman had standing instructions. Any contact from Brian goes straight to voicemail, gets documented, doesn't get returned. He tried finding me on social media. I'd blocked him everywhere months ago. He contacted Jennifer, angry that she was playing nice with me, sent her long texts about loyalty, about family, about how I was a bitter old man who'd abandoned his children over nothing. Jennifer stopped responding after the 3rd message. Then Brian made the mistake people make when they can't process shame. He went public, posted a rant on Facebook at 2 a.m, 500 words about ungrateful parents who abandon their children, who hoard wealth while their families struggle, who punish minor mistakes with permanent exile. He didn't name me, didn't have to. Everyone who knew us understood. The post got 7 likes, 43 comments, mostly from people telling him to take it down. 3 old friends unfollowed him publicly. He deleted it 6 hours later, but screenshots live forever. Sherman called me on a Thursday afternoon, told me about the post. You okay? He asked. I'm fine. Is he? No, but that's not your responsibility anymore. He was right. I felt sadness when I hung up. No regret, not guilt, just the low-level grief you feel when someone you loved becomes someone you can't recognize. Brian was alone, bitter, broke, and blaming everyone but himself. I'd given him the same test Jennifer got. He'd failed it louder. Peace isn't the absence of problems. It's the presence of boundaries and the people who respect them. 6 months in Mexico. My Spanish was conversational now. I could order food, argue about politics, tell jokes that actually landed. Miguel, my tutor, said I had a good ear. I think he was just being kind, but I'd take it. I was dating a woman named Elena, a retired teacher from Mexico City. Moved to Cabo 5 years ago after her husband died. We met at a community art show, started talking about Diego Rivera, ended up having dinner, nothing serious. Companionship, shared meals, beach walks. She had her life, I had mine. We enjoyed the overlap without needing to merge everything. My health was excellent. Blood pressure is stable. Back pain, gone. I was swimming a mile 3 times a week and felt stronger at 68 than I had at 60. I've started writing a memoir, not for publication, just for me, about corporate finance, about the decisions that matter, about reinventing yourself when the first version stops working. It gave me something to think about besides what I'd lost. Jennifer emailed once a month, brief updates, no requests. She was engaged, met a man named Tom in her hiking group, accountant, divorced, 2 grown kids of his own. They were planning a small courthouse wedding in November. She didn't invite me, just told me about it in the email. That felt right, appropriate. Neither one of us was pretending we were somewhere we weren't. I sent a check for $500 from my personal account, not the frozen ones, with a note. Congratulations. Build something honest. She wrote back, thank you. We will. Brian hadn't contacted me in 4 months. Sherman said he'd stopped trying, moved on to blaming other people, other circumstances, anything but himself. I was okay with that, not happy about it, not celebrating his failure, just okay with the distance. Some bridges burn, some you walk away from while they're still standing. Either way, you keep moving. I sat on my balcony that evening, watching fishing boats come in, and realized something. I was content, actually, genuinely content, for the first time in years, maybe decades. That was enough. I taught them how to spend money. I forgot to teach them how to earn respect. Late one night in Cabo, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the balcony with a glass of whiskey and asked myself the question I'd been avoiding for months. What did I do wrong? Not what they did. I knew that story backward and forward. But what was my part in creating the people who could dump their father in a nursing home and celebrate over lobster? The answer wasn't comfortable. I confused providing with parenting. After Margaret died, I was drowning. The house felt empty. The silence was suffocating. I needed to feel useful, needed to believe I still mattered to someone. So I threw money at every problem Brian and Jennifer had. Business struggling? Here's 80,000. Startup failing? Here's 50. Car broke down, credit card maxed, mortgage short? I'll cover it. I told myself I was being a good father, a supportive father, the kind of dad who's there when his kids need him. But I wasn't teaching them to solve problems. I was teaching them that dad solves problems. I enabled dependence and mistook it for love. I avoided conflict. When Jennifer missed my birthday dinner 3 years running, I said nothing. When Brian borrowed money and never mentioned paying it back, I pretended not to notice. I thought keeping the peace required silence. It doesn't. It requires honesty. I gave them everything except expectations. Margaret used to say, "You can't respect someone who doesn't require respect." She'd set boundaries with the kids their whole lives. Chores weren't negotiable. Disrespect had consequences. Love was unconditional, but access wasn't. After she died, I dropped all of it. I just wanted them around. I was afraid if I pushed back, if I said no, if I demanded better, they'd disappear. So I said yes to everything and taught them I had no bottom line. I taught them how to take it, never how to earn. That's on me. I own that completely. But here's what I also know. Their choices as adults are theirs. I couldn't fix Brian's character. Couldn't rewrite Jennifer's values after they were already formed. Couldn't make them choose integrity when entitlement was easier. I could only control my response. And my biggest regret isn't cutting them off. It's waiting so long to do it. Every month I enabled them. Every crisis I funded. Every boundary I failed to set. I was digging the hole deeper. For them and for me. The nursing home wasn't the betrayal. It was the inevitable conclusion. When you teach people they can take without consequences, eventually they take everything, including your dignity. Here's what I learned. What I wish I'd understood at 40 instead of 68. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction, disguised as sacrifice. Generosity without reciprocity isn't kindness. It's volunteering to be used. Family isn't a free pass. It's a relationship that requires maintenance, respect, and mutual care. If I could go back, I'd set boundaries the day after Margaret's funeral. I'd say, I love you, but I'm not an ATM. I'll help when it's a genuine need, but not when it's convenient. I'd teach them to stand on their own instead of propping them up until they couldn't function without me. But I can't go back. I can only go forward. And forward means knowing the difference between love and enabling, between helping and hurting, between being a father and being a resource. I'm still learning, but at least now I'm learning. The hardest part isn't setting the boundary. It's believing you deserve to. If you're watching this, maybe you're dealing with something similar. Maybe you've got kids who only call when they need money. Maybe you've got a spouse who takes you for granted. Maybe you're the one everyone leans on, but nobody asks how you're doing. Maybe you're wondering if you're wrong for feeling angry about it. You're not. But here's what I learned in that nursing home parking lot, and in Mexico, and in every conversation I've had since. Anger without action is just noise. You can be mad all you want. You can complain to friends, post on Facebook, vent to your spouse. But if you don't do something, if you don't set a boundary, make a change, say the hard word, nothing gets better. Anger just becomes bitterness, and bitterness poisons you, not them. Second thing, boundaries without follow-through are just suggestions. I could have told Brian and Jennifer 100 times, you need to respect me, not just my wallet. Wouldn't have mattered. They'd have nodded, said sorry, and kept doing the same thing. The only thing that worked was consequences, real ones, the kind that hurt, freezing the accounts, cutting off access, walking away. You can't negotiate with people who don't respect you. You can only remove yourself from the equation and let them figure out life without you. Third thing, and this is the one that took me longest to understand. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by behavior. I've got friends here in Cabo who check on me more than my own son ever did. People who invite me to dinner because they want my company, not my credit card. People who ask how I'm doing and actually wait for the answer. That's family. Blood just means you started in the same place. It doesn't mean you're obligated to stay there when the relationship becomes toxic. I've seen a lot of comments from people saying they're going through this right now. Adult children draining their retirement, spouses who stopped being partners, siblings who only show up when they need something. I see you, and I want you to know, you're not selfish for protecting yourself. You're not cruel for setting boundaries. You're not a bad parent, or spouse, or sibling for saying enough. You're human, and you deserve better. So here's what I'm asking. Drop your story in the comments. Not for me, I've told mine, but for each other, because we're not alone in this. There are thousands of us navigating the same thing, trying to figure out how to love people who don't know how to love us back. Share your city, your age, your situation if you're comfortable. Let's build a community here. Hit that subscribe button if this story resonated with you. More content coming. Stories, reflections, wisdom from people who've been through it. And remember, you matter. Your dignity matters. Your peace matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I didn't rebuild my life to prove them wrong. I rebuilt it to prove myself right. 1 year in Mexico. I'm 69 now. Older maybe, but not old. There's a difference. The literacy program I volunteered with asked me to co-lead it. Me and a woman named Patricia, retired principal from Monterrey. We've got 40 kids now, 3 nights a week, teaching English and basic math. Last month, one of our students, kid named Javier, 13 years old, tested into an advanced program at his school. His mom cried when she told me, I'm not saving the world, but I'm helping one small corner of it. That counts for something. Elena and I moved in together 4 months ago. Her place was bigger, had a better view, so I gave up my villa, and we combined households. It's been an adjustment, learning to share space again, to compromise on little things like coffee strength and thermostat settings. But it's good. She's good. We're building something slow and healthy. No rush, no pressure. Just 2 people who enjoy each other's company and aren't interested in pretending to be younger than we are. I published the memoir. Self-published, small print run, 200 copies. Sold most of them to folks in the expat community. It's called Assets and Liabilities, A Life in Finance and What Really Counts. Not a bestseller. Not trying to be. Just my story. My lessons. Something to leave behind that's mine. Jennifer visited once. February. Almost exactly a year after the nursing home incident. She asked if she could come. Gave me 2 months' notice. Said she'd stay in a hotel. Wouldn't impose. I said, okay. She came for 3 days. We had coffee on the balcony. Walked the beach. Talked about Margaret. About what Mom would have thought of all this. About the ways grief makes people stupid. She met Elena. They were cordial. Careful. Jennifer didn't overstep. Elena didn't judge. It was okay. Not healed. Not back to what we were. We'll never be that. But honest. Present. 2 adults trying to figure out what relationship, if any, they could build from the rubble. She's married now. The courthouse wedding happened in November. She sent photos. Her and Tom, simple ceremony. Her friends from the hiking group as witnesses. She looked happy. Actually happy. Not performed. She's working as a financial advisor. Got her certifications. Joined a firm in Carlsbad. She's debt-free. Drives a used Honda. Lives in a modest apartment. Packs lunch instead of buying it. She's building something honest. I respect that. Brian sent an email 6 months ago. 2 a.m., drunk, rambling. 3,000 words about betrayal. About how I'd destroyed his life. About how he'd never forgive me. I deleted it unread. Blocked the email address. Some doors stay closed. I think about my grandchildren sometimes. Brian's 2 kids. Jennifer's daughter. I wonder what they've been told. What they think of me. Maybe one day they'll reach out and ask for my side of the story. Maybe they won't. Either way, I can't control that narrative. I can only control my own. My life isn't perfect. I'm not pretending it is. I still miss Margaret every day. Still wake up some mornings and forget she's gone. I still wonder what I could have done differently with the kids. Whether there was a moment I could have turned things around if I'd just been paying attention. But I don't regret the choice I made. I didn't cut them off to punish them. I did it to save myself. And a year later, living in Mexico with a woman I care about, and a life that's entirely mine, I know I made the right call. This life isn't perfect, but it's mine, and that's enough. The best inheritance I can leave is the lesson that respect isn't optional. It's the entry fee. If there's one thing I want you to take from this story, it's this. Your dignity isn't negotiable. Not for family, not for money, not for keeping the peace, not for avoiding confrontation or maintaining some illusion of unity that stopped being real years ago. I spent 2 years being an ATM because I was afraid of being alone. It turns out, being alone is better than being used. I sat in that nursing home lobby and felt the loneliest I'd ever felt. My own children abandoning me because I'd outlived my usefulness. But you know what was lonelier? The 2 years before that. Waiting in my house for phone calls that only came when they needed something. Pretending we had a relationship when all we had was a transaction. At least in Cabo, when I'm alone. It's honest. Was it hard cutting off my kids? Yes. Do I regret it? No, because I chose myself, and that's not selfish. That's survival. For years, I thought being a good father meant sacrificing everything. My time, my money, my peace, my self-respect. I thought if I just gave enough, they'd eventually appreciate it. They didn't. Because you can't earn love from people who only see you as a resource. To everyone watching who's been taken for granted, by kids, by spouses, by siblings, by anyone who's supposed to care about you, you're not the problem. You're the solution waiting to happen. You don't need permission to protect yourself. You don't need anyone's approval to set a boundary. You don't need to wait for them to change before you change your circumstances. Set the boundary. Take the trip. Freeze the card. Walk away. Live your life. Stop funding people who don't respect you. Stop answering calls that only come when they need something. Stop pretending that keeping the peace is more important than keeping your dignity. You've earned the right to be treated well. You've worked your whole life. You've given enough. Now give to yourself. And if they call you selfish, good. Let them. Selfish people think boundaries are selfish. People who respect you will understand. Before you go, do me one more favor. Like this video if it hit home. Subscribe if you want more honest conversations about life, family, and the courage it takes to choose yourself. Drop a comment with your age and where you're watching from. I want to know who's out there, who's listening, who's going through this, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's struggling with the same choice I made. Someone who needs permission to put themselves first. We're in this together. You matter. Your peace matters. Your dignity matters. Don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise. Thanks for watching.